views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Thank you and welcome. Again, my name is Angela Torres, and I'm going to be your moderator this evening. I'm an active member here at BronxNet Community Church, and my goal this evening is to help prepare an informative environment of mutual respect where everyone will have a chance to share, and most importantly, where each one of us will leave informed about each one of the candidates here. The format for tonight will begin with an opening question, which will be posed to all of the candidates. And it will be followed by questions that are issue specific. And then after that, it will be followed by questions from the audience if we have time. If we do not get to those questions will be answered on the Facebook page that Elizabeth alluded to earlier. I hope that each one of you received your card so that you could ask questions, and you can hand them to the ushers in the back who are somewhere back there, okay? The candidates are going to have 2 minutes to answer the questions with no time for rebuttal. But they will be focusing in on answering the question for themselves as to how they would handle it. So it's going to work out wonderfully. And then we're going to end with closing statements from each of the candidates, which will have a limit of 1 minute per candidate. We really need to be respectful of time as we have this space, and we want to be mindful that if you speak past the time limit, that's going to require for me to have to interrupt, just so that we can keep to time and be respectful of all of you and your time as well. There is a timekeeper who's sitting in the front who will have, be alerting them of the time. So when they have 1 minute left, when they have 30 seconds left, and when they have a full hard stop, okay, which will be bright red so that everyone knows. And so that's something else to keep in mind. Please note that the candidates have been seated in random order, and as you can see, we indicated whether they are in the primary election or in the general election, okay? And please use your agenda as a guide for the evening, and remember to vote for the primary election on September 12th, because actually only one of the candidates will move forward to the general election. And remember to vote also on November 7th for the general election. And so without further ado, let us welcome our candidates for this evening. I'm just going to give the names of the various candidates. The first one, John Serini, Alex A. Gomez, John C. Doyle, Mark Jonai, Marjorie Velasquez, Victor R. Ortiz, Egidio Cementilli. As a courtesy and to save on time, beyond this point, we would ask that you would please hold your applause until the end of the forum. Thank you, and let us begin. The first question, and we will actually be starting from this end and going that way, okay, for each question, so you will be our first person answering. The first question is, why are you running to be District 13's City Council member?
Good evening. Thank you, Angela. First off, I want to say thank you to everyone and for the church to invite us and the pastor. Thank you very much. My name is Victor R. Ortiz. I grew up in the Bronx, educated here at Lehman College, and I've had about 30 years of service in the Bronx. I'm a middle-class family man. My wife is here. She's a 911 responder. First responder, and I'm honored to have her here with me, representing me. It started back in 1984 when I was bike riding with some friends. The crack epidemic was in the city. It was blowing up. It was destroying our communities. And I decided with a group of friends of mine to put together an anti-drug team called the Rad Dogs, riding against drugs, desperate on getting sponsored. And the Rad Dogs did shows throughout the whole United States, and we got paid. And we were able to send a message of an anti-drug message. From there, I went to Lehman College. And while I was going to Lehman College, I had Jerome Demers, Parks Department person, come to me and said, Victor, can you rebuild the skate park for the kids in the community? So in 1988, I built Malali Skate Park. If you look behind us a couple of blocks, the idea of the skate park next to 101 is my idea. And that skate park was presented to the community in 1988. Now we have 14 skate parks. I went to Lehman College. I studied political science. I worked with Serrano, Congressman Roberto Ramirez, and all the politicians of the day. And when I graduated from Lehman, I went to work at Casa Promesa, the first HIV hospital in the Bronx. I was the recreational coordinator. For the first time, we were able to service the people who were dying of HIV/AIDS. Very difficult task. And then after that, I worked as a teacher. I became a social studies teacher. How you doing, guys? Getting ready to go back to school, right? Almost done? All right. Well, in conclusion, I've been working all my life as a teacher, as an assistant politician in Albany, as a Coast Guard auxiliary, and that has led me today to run for city council. I want to take all I've done, everything that I've done, and bring it to the community, and everything that I've learned, hopefully with that energy, become the next 13th city council member here and represent this community as a middle-class worker who wants to bring the community back to the old Democratic Blue Dog Democratic team. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, our next candidate. Why are you running to be District 13 City Council member?
Thank you for having us here. God bless you all. God bless the Reverend. I'm here to continue the fight which some of us started many years ago. Myself, I've been advocating for this community since I've been 20 years old, which I don't want to tell you my age, but I've been at it for about 30 years. I've been to every community event, or tried to be at every community event, at meetings where there's issues that have come up related to our community. And I want to say that I am running to make this community better, not for me, I'm 50 years old, but for the young individuals that are sitting there, to make their lives better, to make their community safer, cleaner, quieter, to have the opportunities that I have not had, opportunities that some of you parents have not had. So this is why I'm running, to make our community better for the youth, our future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next candidate.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Pastor Nick. It's great seeing also Susan, and thank you, Angela, and everyone else that had come out today. My name is Marjorie Velasquez, and I am running here in District 13 because I come from a strong, strong family background that through adversity was able to make it, was able to give me and my siblings a better life than they had. This is what Throsneck is all about too, because I moved here about 10 years ago, and it's that sheer community strength, that cloth that we're all cut from. That strength is what guides us through us. For me, I personally went through some challenges at work. I got hurt. And then after that, I had a car crash. And 2012, let's just say, wasn't my year. 7 surgeries in, multiple years in this healthcare rehab, physical therapy, red tape world that we live in. All these setbacks, it really struck me down. They were really tough days. But you know what? My recovery began when I knew I can help. People who didn't have access to the same doctors, lawyers, or even had challenges with language access. It's finding their voice. It's giving them. And that's why I got involved. I joined the community board. I'm the treasurer there now. I decided also to go ahead and run for district leader, and I became the first Latina in this district to do so. And what we're looking at is giving everyone a voice. And when we're doing that, we're looking at the challenges that we face here in this district. Transportation is one of them. We live in a transit desert. We don't have viable public options. So it's fighting back and making sure that the administration gives us our ferry service, gives us our Metro North that we're promised from Albany, gives us better bus routes, and make sure that our trains work for us. When we're looking at education, make sure that we have the same equity that the rest of the city has. When we're looking at quality of life, that we're really focusing on bettering our lives, that we all feel safe and secure in this district. And when we're looking at affordability, that we're not displacing our seniors, that we're not displacing our families, that we're giving everyone the solid opportunity to progress together. And we're looking at our mom and pops. We're saving them because we're staying right here with them and together. And that's what I'm here. We're going to use our strength and our determination together.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, we could hold our applause, please, till the very end. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Just want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank the Throgs Neck Community Church for hosting tonight. Pastor Nick for that wonderful reading, Ms. Torres. And most of all, we've done a number of these, but I haven't seen so many young attend an event like this, and I'm glad that you're here, for the young men, boys, women, boys and girls that are here tonight with us. Public service has been the most humbling and rewarding experience of my life. For the last 5 years, I've represented nearly 125,000 people in the State Assembly, neighborhoods from Morris Park, Pelham Parkway, Allerton, and Marshallou Parkway. Over the last 5 years, we've come to realize most of the issues that we face day in and day out in our lives are local issues: quality of life, safety, crime, litter, graffiti, things that make us proud of where we live or things that impact our neighborhoods and take that pride away from us. When I decided to run for the council seat, it was so I could make a difference, bring back the experience that I made, the relationships that I maintained in Albany, down to the city where I can better address the issues of this community. I pride myself on being made available. I pride myself on the strong work ethic that I have. And as city council member of the 13th Council District, I will represent every man, woman, and child that calls this district their home, and I'll fight for a brighter future, a safer community, and one that we can all be proud of. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And our next candidate, Mr. Doyle.
Good evening, everybody. How are we all doing tonight? I want to thank Angela as well as Elizabeth and Pastor Nick, who I've had the privilege of interacting with so many times through the 45th Precinct Council. The pastor's always somebody who's at our events, whether it's giving toys to the underprivileged kids or showing up at our memorials when we have a fallen officer. This church is deeply rooted in the community, and I appreciate you being here. I also want to thank the Campaign Finance Board, which gives a voice to ordinary New Yorkers, myself included. We're not all made of money, and the fact that the board elevates the voices of ordinary citizens to drown out the special interest is meaningful for me and is part of the reason I'm able to stand on this stage. My name's John Doyle, and at 31, which I am, you start making decisions about life, where you're going to settle down, what you're going to do, what your goals are. Now, as I looked around, this was probably not what I thought I would probably set out to do, believe it or not. I had plans, I think like many of us, and I wanted to find a right person for this seat. After a few things happened, I looked around at the issues we were confronting, whether it's the transportation issues, the long commute times that are making people of my generation move away, whether it's criminal justice issues, whether it's the opioid epidemic that we've failed to address, whether it's transparency in government, dealing with Rodman's Neck, frankly dealing with 2800 Bruckner Boulevard, which I'm sure we're going to get into in a little bit. You know, these aren't election year issues for me. These have been the causes of my life. And as I look out into the room and into some of the rows of the seats here, I've worked with so many of you on these issues. Again, I think that this may be the hardest fight of all, but that's why I feel it's probably the right fight. Because nothing in life that you fight for is ever meant to be easy if it's meaningful. And that's the message I would want to send to these young men over here. That the fights that you'll engage in your lives will be the most meaningful, will be the hardest. And we're up against big money, special interest, fights all the way. But that's how I know this is worth it. And I hope one day you guys find your cause in life too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate, if we could hold our applause, please. Thank you. Oh, you just have to press the button.
Good evening. I got it. Thank you. So good evening. Thank you, Pastor Nick. Thank you, Ms. Torres, and thank you, New York City Votes, Faith in New York, and all those who are here tonight to listen to the issues that are at hand. My name is Alex Gomez. I live in the community for the last 10 years. My wife grew up for the last 30-plus years in this community. I've worked all over New York City for the last 20 years in social services. I've actually done the groundwork and actually served the community throughout the city in the hardest to serve neighborhoods. I'm not doing this to enrich myself. I'm not doing this for any political reasons. I actually have no political ties to another candidate, to the county, or to any party. As a matter of fact, I was on the Democratic ballot, and I'm no longer on the ballot because someone abused that power. And tonight I'm announcing that as I am actually an independent candidate for the general elections, and I thank the community
Hold your applause, please.
for
Thank
allowing
you.
me to get back on the ballot, because I'm representing everyone in the community. And that's the reason why I decided to run 2.5 years ago, because I saw that this community has changed. The numbers are changed. There's 40% Latino community in this district, and we need a voice for everyone. Not a voice for the rich, not a voice for a specific population, but a voice for everyone. And we also have a big immigrant community. I'm an immigrant. I came here at the age of 5 from Colombia. My mom raised 3 wonderful kids on her own, and I know what it is to work hard and to do the right thing, and that's why I'm up here. I have 4 beautiful children who are here tonight with my wife and my sister, and I thank them for supporting me through this process. But again, the reason why I'm running is to serve the community. Like Pastor Nick said, we're here to serve, and elected officials should think first about serving the community, not serving themselves. And if you really care about the community, then actually do the work before you say that you're gonna do the work.
Thank you so much.
Hi. I want to thank Pastor Nick, Drugs Night Community Church, Ms. Torres, and the whole congregation for letting us use this great facility. Pastor Nick, thank you so much for offering us prayers, because we know, God knows, at this time in the world, we all need prayers. So my name is John Serini. Tonight I am here as the only Republican on the panel here. And I'm going straight through to the general election November 7th. Before I go further, I forgot I would love to acknowledge the fact that tonight is my wife's birthday, and she's here with us. Happy birthday to my beautiful wife, Grace, who's here with us. We're going to go out and get some tea after this. But, you know, why am I here? Because, you know, I was born and raised in this neighborhood. My parents bought a home in 1973 on Logan Avenue, right near St. Benedict's Church. That's the church that I was baptized in. I'm still a parishioner there. I am a Eucharistic minister. I'm a lector, and so faith is important to me. It's very important to me and my family. And what do I want to do as councilman? I expect that, you know, what we all want is we want to be able to raise our families here and our children to raise their families here. You know, I don't know about you, but I'm tired of seeing on social media and talking to people and saying, oh, the neighborhood is going down, we got to get out. No, we don't have to get out. We need to stay. We need to keep this neighborhood strong. We need to fight for our community, and we need people that are willing to do that. That's something that I'm willing to do. I want to be that person, that voice for all of us in City Hall, regardless whether we're in Throgs Neck, Allerton Avenue, City Island, Morris Park, wherever we are in our community. We're all one community. We need to unify. We need to be one voice, and that's what I hope that I can accomplish as City Councilman of the 13th District. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your responses. We will now be asking you issue-specific questions with, again, no more than 2 minutes each. Each candidate will have an opportunity to answer each question, but you will not have any time to respond to fellow candidates' responses. So we will be asking the questions, going again from this end to the other end. And once again, I just want to bring to everyone's attention that the timekeeper is sitting there, and so let's try to keep to time. Thank you very much. Okay, so with that, let me begin with the first question. The first question has to do with land use and development. Recently, our community has been in deep discussion around the proposed development at 2800 Bruckner Boulevard, which is just down the block from our church community here. For many, it was a shock largely due to the fact that it appeared to be decisions made without full transparency. Given this and the broader context that our borough is undergoing several neighborhood rezonings with various degrees of community participation, what will you do to make sure that this district is not only made aware of new development, but that we will have an active role in the decision-making process? Thank you so much. So if we could please begin with Ms. Ortiz.
Good evening again. Just this morning, I was reading the DHS budget. DHS budget for 2017 is $1.7 billion. And they're going to try to help 60,000 homeless people get back into permanent housing. And so what you saw at 2800 is an example of how money, greed, and developers are going to take advantage of the Democrats in this community. Period. Punto. 52 family housing building, 2800. What's the best way? I got $1.7 billion there. They're going to pay the rent directly to me. They're going to give me $5,000 for each family that I house. Do the math. 2800, all the buildings surrounding, even on Westchester, there was some co-ops that went up, condominiums. They converted the condominiums to permanent housing. Did they let the community board know? No. They probably lied to the community board and then did the switch. Said we're going to have permanent housing and then switched it to homeless shelters. We need to wake up, ladies and gentlemen. The middle class people here are paying for this. $1.7 billion. Who do you think is going to pay for that? Us, the working people, the middle class people. And if you look across the board, you have developers, and they're going to put their money into development. Landlords are going to switch the bait. Instead of providing housing for the local community people in the neighborhood, they're going to switch it and try to bring homelessness. Yes, as a community, we need to deal with homelessness. We need to deal with landlords like in 2800.
Thank you. Thank
But
you.
we need to be careful how we do it, and we need to be united as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate. And just as a reminder, let's focus in on what specifically you will do in order to make sure we have an active role in the decision-making process. Go ahead.
Thank you. I find zoning and land use issues are very close to me. I spent 12 years on the community board. One of my jobs was to be the chairman of the housing and zoning. So I dealt with a lot of issues related to these type of efforts. And I learned something within that 12 years. And right now, 2800 Bruckner Boulevard, nothing's happened. A lot of misinformation, a lot of meetings. I think I've been to 1, 2, 3, 4, is it 4 meetings? Maybe 5. I'm losing track. 5 meetings. Right now, nothing's happened. Is there a zoning issue? Yes, there's an issue about usage. Very detailed, very technical. You probably spend 3 hours trying to decipher something out of those manuals, zoning laws. What we do know with 2800 is that we have a management company. Hasn't been confirmed if he is a owner or not, but we'll leave it as a management company. And today, he has asked some of the tenants to move. What is he going to bring there? It's a community facility. How did the community facility get there? I don't know. I think our elected officials years ago, somehow, in a miracle way, converted it into converted into a zoning for community facility. And that's a problem. That's a problem because these community services facilities bring in supportive housing. Supportive housing is not what this community needs. We need senior housing. We need affordable housing, not supportive housing. We must understand the difference. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's hold our applause. Thank you. Next candidate.
Thank you. So the issue is overall overdevelopment. And I take a lot of pride in knowing that my Community Board 10, has taken the lead and created an ad hoc committee to address the overdevelopment. Right now, the chair of that committee is Irene, and she's with us today. And what that group has enabled is not just having community board members, but having real members of the neighborhood. So we're talking about small business owners. We're talking about civic leaders involved in the decision-making, holding the developers accountable before the shovel hits the ground. And as a city council member, it's about empowering these community boards, especially when they have ad hoc committees like that. So it's actually pushing Community Board 11 to do that as well and giving more authority to the community boards, and as a city council member, having the authority to say no to the development and saying, no, you just can't do that. And what we saw is in the Baychester Mall proposal that just happened, and how Councilmember Andy King, Councilmember Richie Torres, Councilmember Jimmy Vaca helped stop that development. And I took a lead early in January and called them out because they did not involve Community Board 10. They did not involve Community Board 11. Community Board 12 took the lead without our input. And guess what? We went to our electeds and they held them accountable. And that's what we need to do together. It's all voices heard. And if the community says no, the city council member has to take a stand to the developers and say, it's not happening. Not here. And that's why I took the initiative and did the petition, an online petition for 2,800. So that way that we do hold these developers accountable, that we know what's happening, because yet they still are shady. They tell us one story one day, the next day they go and do another one, and it's holding them accountable, and it's pushing them. And guess what? They got over 700 names. They got it, they know it, because that's why he responded, because he knows that we're here, and we're not gonna let this happen. And that's, as a city council member, I would continue that and continue the fight and say no. My community says no, it's not going to happen.
Thank you very much. And our next candidate, same question.
Great question. 2800 Bruckner Boulevard. No one's still sure what's going to happen there, but it's apparent that the owner and the operator were up to something. The cat was let out of the bag, and the community came together. It was unfortunate that so much energy and time was put into trying to figure out what was going to go there, and the rumors speculated even more fear. The last meeting that we had with the operator who attended the meeting finally gave us a presentation. At the end of that meeting, he was asked to put that in writing, so it's not a play on words. In addition, I asked that he make that same presentation to the full community board before anything is done. He agreed to do that as well. Time will tell. To answer the question simply, how do we address 2800 Bruckner Boulevard, which is only one issue, because if we stop them there, they go around the corner. It can be East Tremont, it can be Pelham Parkway, Pelham Bay, Morris Park, and so on and so forth. We have to give more power to community boards, empower them. There has to be more transparency on any development. And thirdly, we have to make sure that we know about any building permits that are applied for way in advance before the construction begins. And I'll be working on making sure that the community is notified and keeping in mind that community comes first. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate.
Well, thank you for the question. Just one correction, and some of the candidates have discussed this a little bit. Nothing has yet been proposed, and I think that's what's leading to some of the hysteria here. There's no transparency, which is a great thing to bring up. I have a whole platform on my website, Ethics in Government. Ethics is on the ballot September 12th. And it talks about how we're going to do town halls in every meeting, how I'm going to put my schedule online so you can see how I, as your public servant, am spending my time, how we're going to do participatory budgeting, giving you a say in how your tax dollars are spent. I want to be your council member. I don't want to be your king. You deserve a say in how your tax dollars are spent. Those are things that are going to move us forward. As it relates to 2800, because I want to keep it as centered on the question as possible, what have I done? I've attended many of the meetings that everyone else here has spoken about. Again, any meeting that's been public, I've made it my business to be there. And any meeting that's not public, I've made it my business to call that out too. As it relates to what to go from here, I've written to the Attorney General. I just recently got a response that they're looking into it, calling for a full development into Stewart redevelopment. As I've said in the Bronx Talk debate and elsewhere, their website reads like a Ponzi scheme. Where on earth would we trust an operator to solicit donations of $10,000, promising a 500% return, to turn around on the other hand and say, by the way, now that I'm scamming you, let me care for this vulnerable population? We would never allow that, and the Attorney General should look into that. I think there may be some sort of breach of the law. I think this is also a reason why we need financial independence. We cannot have a council member who has relationships with the Staggs and the D'Alessios of the world. It's not going to serve the neighborhood in the long term. Money talks. I've worked in the political sector. Let me tell you, money has undue influence on the political sector. That's not going to change unless we change who we send there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate.
Thank you so much. I'm going to follow up what John just said. It's one word: follow the money. If you want to find out why we are in the problems that we're in and why the problem of 2800 exists, is the money. Follow the money. The candidates up here, go on the New York City Campaign Finance Board and look at where the money's coming from. And some of these candidates are taking money from the real estate board, from real estate developers, from individuals that are creating the problem. There's a problem in City Hall. It starts with Mayor de Blasio. He's created this problem when he came into office in 2013. I'm not a friend of de Blasio. Some of my candidates are, fellow candidates. Some of the people in City Hall already, some of the New York City Council members who represent this borough are in bed with those developers. So we need to, one, propose a change. How do we propose that change? By making sure that anytime a developer or a landlord or anyone wants to create, whether it's affordable housing, supportive housing, or any kind of housing, to post that, and not only in the newspaper so that it could be a public notice, but to post it online and to actually take a vote. Let's put it up for a vote, so that the people, the community, decide if we want that type of particular housing in our community. Let's put it back in the hands of the people. Let them decide who wants those type of facilities, not just the community boards, but the people who live around those facilities. And yes, one of the candidates on this stage took money from the developer or the individual who owns and runs that facility. So hold them accountable. Follow the money. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next candidate.
All right, so there's a lot to say here, so I hope I can get it done in 2 minutes. I was the original president of the Throgs Neck Merchant Association, and during that time, I developed a lot of contacts and had a lot of phone numbers in my cell phone. And when I first found out about the building, 2800, I immediately called up the D'Alessios because I had their cell phones. Got them on the phone. They were like very friendly. Hey, how's everything going? Yeah, good. Hey, what's going on with 2800? What are you talking about? Hey, are you putting in something over there? And they're like, no, we sold that building 6 years ago. All right, thought I had the wrong information, hung up, went on Acris, which is a website, found out they never sold it 6 years ago. So called back, got a message, got a receptionist, got a message. Very frustrating. The elected officials, Jimmy Vaca and congressman and senator, and everybody's getting the same runaround. So, you know, we need something to be done because we can't just have them giving us a different story and lying to our face. I have 2 weeks ago sent a letter to the Bronx District Attorney asking her to launch an investigation into any illegal activities that the landlord is doing there, whichever landlord that may be. I've also requested Crowley. Last week I went to a town hall meeting. I was the only one that actually spoke about the building at the town hall meeting with Crowley, and I asked him to launch a federal investigation because, you know, I mean, this is supposedly going to be something with homeless. So if this is something with homeless and this is what they're saying, then the federal government should be able to get involved and do a federal investigation. As far as real quick, what will we do to make sure this doesn't happen again? I want to launch a system where you guys can sign up to receive a text, an email, a phone blast to let you know when something's going on in the community. There is zero reason why today, with the technology that we have, that you people should not be alerted to what's going on in this community. If you want to sign up for this, I'm going to be doing a test for the next 2 months before the election. Call my office at 718-792-5800 and sign up. We will let you know whenever meetings are going on.
Thank you. And before we go on to our next question, I just want to remind the candidates that when I ask the questions, I really need you to focus in on how you would do that particular thing, and without any, indirect thing about another candidate. I just want to remind, I know we spoke about it in the other room, but I just want to remind the candidates, just so we can be fair. Okay, anyhow, moving on to the next question. It's about small businesses. Our community is full of entrepreneurs and long-standing small businesses, many of whom support families with children. However, many are struggling to continue to sustain themselves in this area due to rent hikes, such as the Clipper, who is forced to close. I loved it there. We are also missing Reno's Restaurant and Spato's Restaurant, which were beloved establishments. We know that the Small Business Jobs Survival Act, which is sponsored by Bronx District 18 Council Member Palma, is one way that our electeds are proposing to support these businesses. What do you plan to do to protect our family-owned businesses and create new pathways to support job opportunities that will keep our local communities strong and maintain our family-focused culture? Okay, first candidate.
Well, in order to keep the community businesses intact, we have to buy local. We have to go out and purchase in our local stores. But it's kind of hard when you have so many malls in the Bronx depleting and taking away the businesses from the local mom and pop stores. I mean, you could go to the mall in Co-op City and you could purchase everything that you need. You don't need to go back on East Tremont and purchase these items because you get them at a discounted price from the local malls. You got Aldi's, you got superstores. What am I proposing to do? I think we discussed this at a couple of hearings before, to sponsor a bid type of program whereby we would generate taxes to try to redevelop and help small businesses. But the real problem is the development and the overdevelopment of the businesses within the community. How many malls does the Bronx have? And if you look at the amount of malls that we have, that's what's draining the resources away from the local community. And so as your community city council member, I hope to support those businesses that are suffering here, try to place a stop on the overdevelopment and malls in the neighborhood, and try to give them some type of tax incentives to stay in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Our next candidate.
The city council's proposal, or the councilwoman Palmer, I don't know if that's legal. It's probably not going to hold up in court. What we should be doing is providing small business owners an opportunity to finance. The hardest thing for a small mom and pop is to get a loan. It's disgusting. You call small business services and they refer you to a bank. Same thing. Nothing happens. You're back to square one. We need designated money to have a pool for small business owners to actually tap into something like that and have capital to expand their stores, make their services better for the community. Right now, all the malls you see, the public has paid for it. Basically, they paid for it. In a matter of 10 to 12 years, the public has paid for every mall in New York City. Why? Because they're not paying their taxes on it. You subsidize them, but we can't subsidize small mom and pops. It's a matter of political connection. The big malls control the politicians. The politicians give them all these write-offs, tax incentives, startup money. And those big malls also give contributions to the politician. That's how the world works. Unfortunately, it's sad, and it's not going to happen if I'm the city councilman. Small mom and pops are the lifeblood. I'm an immigrant. My family's in small business, mom and pop. It's the only survival for certain communities. There's a reason why we open up the bodega store, or we open up the pizzeria on the corner, or the Chinese store. Why we don't get a suit and go downtown There's a reason for that, folks, and that's why we need to support the immigrant small mom and pop stores. Not the big franchises, not the big developers who contribute to the politicians. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next candidate.
I know too well these stories of how small businesses are pushed out by overdevelopment. See, my mother-in-law and her mother had a store here on East Tremont. It was called Feathers Boutique. And Bay Plaza Mall came, and we lost it. Unfortunately, that's what's been happening to our neighborhood. And ways to recover and actually spur more development into our neighborhoods begins with transportation. Having viable public transportation coming in, having a ferry service, building that need, building that bridge here is one way, but it's also, how do we get there? It's the business improvement district. We've seen the success here in Westchester Square. You see that Morris Park has started, and now recently, Throsneck is actually gonna start one up hopefully very soon. And this is what it is. It's basically, it unites funds, and it shares the cost of security, of marketing, of cleaning the area amongst many stores, so that way we give our small businesses resources. Also, my one big kicker here is SBS, Small Business Services, has a responsibility to us. As our small businesses, we need to thrive. So they need to come here and actually go through every single store and make sure that they let us know before you issue a fine or a violation that we know that we could address it. So we can't spend money because that's an undue tax that our small businesses are paying, and we need to stop that. We need to make sure that we flourish it by also encouraging our community board to bring them in. Have the small businesses talk about what they're offering. Having special days dedicated to the small businesses, like Amex, American Express does it. Why doesn't the community board sponsor it? Doing that, bringing the businesses back and bringing them alive is how we all thrive together. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate.
As many of you may know, I come from the small business world. I've had several of them. So I truly understand the issues that the small mom and pop businesses face. But they're so essential to our communities. They make our commercial corridors vibrant, our communities vibrant where we live, raise a family. They make us proud of where we reside, the convenience of being able to shop. So how do we protect them, patronize them? Second, we know that their issues are competing with the internet and the box stores. So I came up with a plan. We're going to unite the industries. So if you're a restaurant owner, we'll pool you and you buy together and benefit from the bulk purchase discount. So you can compete with the box stores, buy your products at a lower price. Therefore, you can compete with them. So if you're selling Coca-Cola, you'll pay the same price as McDonald's will. I come from this world. I know what it takes. I know what we need, and we need to fight for those small mom and pop shops so they stay in our community. I will support BIDS and the Bronx Chamber of Commerce. They're the voice of those small businesses.
Thank you. Next candidate.
Thank you for the question. And just so you know, I too love the Clippers, so I'm glad that someone else brought that up. And I think I speak for everyone in the room, no matter who your preferred candidate is, no more Clippers, right? We can all agree on that? For me, and this is ironic because I got news the Clipper was closing as I was on my way down to a press conference at City Hall, at the steps of City Hall, to talk about the Small Business Job Survival Act. What that act would do is, one, allow, if you pay your rent on time, to be able to get a 10-year lease, and then the legal right to negotiate thereafter. The playing field is tilted towards the real estate industry. It's just like 2800. The 800-pound gorilla in the room is the real estate industry. We know what the problem is. Nobody's talking about how we diagnose and correct the problem. We need to tilt the playing field back to the small business owner. If we don't do that, we're going to continue to get the TD Banks and the Dunkin' Donuts and the CVS stores and the stores that, frankly, are not serving this community. Another thing we need to do, we need to stand up to the special interests. When Baychester Square Shopping Mall came up, I was the only one who went down to the steps of City Hall. You need someone who's going to go fight for you down at City Hall. That's what I did. I went down to City Hall. I testified against it. Gave a very spirited performance. You can see it on my website. And I spoke about how this was exactly what was not needed. It's one of the worst bottlenecks in the country on I-95. Everyone in this room knows that. Everyone in this room has known that. The developers knew it too. There were no plans for infrastructure improvements. That's why I went down there. That's why I testified against it. I'm thrilled that proposal was defeated, but we need to be mindful of that in the future. We got to stop with this. The leaders of our borough have this failed mentality that all our jobs are going to be solved by creating these new shopping malls. This is poor job growth, job development. They don't create new jobs. It's a failure of leadership. It's a failure of action. We need to stand up. We need to say no. So it's a two-pronged approach. Last thing I would do, because about what we're going to do, is I would encourage SBS to work with small businesses about how they can build their internet sales. Because I'm going to be honest with you all, we're not going to change that mindset. As I travel to work to and from every day, I see a lot of UPS trucks that are stopped by the side of the road. We need to help our small businesses meet a 21st century economy, and we need a government that is set up to help them and not get in their way. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate.
Thank you so much. I agree with John Doyle. I believe that we need to support not only the Small Business Survival Job Survival Act, we need to make sure that we hold the landlords accountable for the rents that they continue to increase. The problem is the real estate companies, the real estate board, and anyone who's taking money from the real estate companies or real estate board. And the problem is already in City Hall, and it's also here at this forum with candidates taking money from the real estate. And if you're a real estate company and you're considering yourself a small business, you're really not a small business. You're helping the people who are pushing the people out of the community. We need to make sure that we support those small businesses by, one, creating not only tax breaks for them, by allowing them to hire local and giving the shop owners a tax break at the end of the year through payroll taxes, number one. Number two, let's take the money away from some of these developers who are getting these huge discounts with 0% interest for 30 years, and they're getting loans from the city and from the state, okay, bonds, so that they can build quote-unquote affordable housing. Let's give that money to the small businesses in New York City and allow them to expand, allow them to increase sales, and let's educate our small business owners. Let's give them that opportunity to be e-commerce retailers and not just mom and pop on the street. And we do need to support our mom and pop stores by what? By promoting them, by investing in them, and by all of us shopping locally. And that's what I would do. Thank you so much.
Just a reminder to the candidates not to give any indirects about any other candidate. I just want to bring that attention. Let's move on to the next candidate. Thank you.
Hi, so I am, I believe, the only actual active small business owner on this panel today, so I could tell you definitely the struggles of the small business owner. I have 10 employees, and when I opened up my office where I am today, 18 years ago, I remember that I could barely afford, because we had no clients, we were a new business. So I had to go to a bank to borrow money to pay my rent, which also then would be paying my mortgage. So I was borrowing money. So I had a mortgage to pay my mortgage, but this is what you have to do when you're first in business to stay alive. So, you know, I know firsthand the expenses of the small business owner are astronomical. It doesn't only go to rent and utilities, but it goes to employment. Employment follows things like workers' compensation, unemployment. Now, there's some things about some bills that we have to pay that we can't reap the benefits from. Unemployment. A business owner has to pay unemployment on their own salary, but in the event business is bad, that business owner cannot collect unemployment unless the business is out of business. It takes a long time to close down your business. Even if you wanted to go out of business, you'd have to, it would take you such a long time that you couldn't wait until you started collecting the unemployment. So things have to be fixed. I want to suggest that the unemployment go into a savings account for that business owner, so that in the event they do go out of business, they can collect from that savings account. We need to bring back big retail, you know, an anchor store to our community. Where Mandy's is, I don't know if you heard this, but they're thinking about bringing, and it's probably a done deal, that they're talking about bringing in Montefiore. I was very upset about this idea. Now, while Montefiore can bring jobs here, it's not bringing people to shop in our community. So I feel that we needed an anchor store, something like Westchester Square got, because we needed people to come in. I reached out to a few stores, Mandy's, Barnes & Noble's, Payless shoe stores, Modell's, Trader Joe's, they all said, we can't come to you because your median income in Throgs Neck is not high enough. You can't afford us. They said, you don't have enough parking spaces. I said, what are you talking about the median? We can afford you. And you have 44 parking spaces. How many do you need? But this is what we need. We need more retail in our community.
Thank you so
I
much.
have a lot more to say, but I just don't have time.
Thank you, thank you. Anyhow, I just wanted to thank everyone. We're going to be moving on in just a moment to the third question. And again, just, you know, I keep kind of bringing this up. Let's try to keep to time and also, you know, not allude to any other candidate. All right, well, thank you so much. And we are moving on now to the third question. We know that citywide, 80% of drug overdoses involve opioids. In Pelham Bay Park, we've seen the highest amount of drug overdoses in the city over those past few months. Even closer to home, the city park behind PS 304 has become the hotspot for marijuana sales and smoking. Our own church had a basketball outreach day, and you know, we did find some of the littering of the clips on the ground. There have been reported issues of drug presence at several other parks in the district as well, and we were shocked to learn about the near child abduction that recently occurred. Clearly, safety in our shared public spaces is a huge priority for many of the families that live in our community. So how do you plan to increase safety in our public parks for our children? Thank you. Thank you. Next.
I don't mind going first. Like I said before, I was one of the first candidates to talk about the topic. I'm the only candidate who ever worked in a drug rehab program. I worked at Promesa on the third floor, a drug rehab program, and I saw many of the residents from our neighborhoods there, and I try to help them get back into recovery. As far as the epidemic, we need to network the community, and as a city councilman, I would make sure that every community, every street has a power base, and that power base will network with the city councilman and the NYPD Police Department. Because we need to network. In order to fight this epidemic, we need to network the community and highlight the hot spots and support the police department to go in there not only to tear it down, but we also have to go back into the community to educate the culture and the children within the neighborhood. The only way we win this war against drugs, the opioids, and the heroin epidemic is by networking as a community. And none of the candidates here are saying, let's network our resources. Let's network the depleted police department that doesn't have enough manpower to run around the community turning off the fires. We need to network. We need to stay together. We need to be strong. The middle class community has to wake up and has to really come forward and support each other in the entire district. I'm the only city councilman here that knows how to network, that has the history to network, that has been, since the age of 13, 14, part of an anti-drug community-based team that was fighting drugs back in the 80s. No one here has that support, and no one here has that history in recreation and networking.
Thank you. Next candidate.
The drug problem of the 70s and 80s is different than what we have today. We have more of a cultural abuse of prescription drugs that lead to street drugs. Some of our neighbors, our friends, family members. We're not talking about people on the street doing bad things. We're talking about neighbors, construction workers, people that are out there, they get hurt on a job. They get an operation on their back. The next thing you know, you get opium. The doctor gives you painkillers. Painkillers will make you addicted. The next thing you know, 6 months, a year, you're looking to buy pills on the street. That's the problem. Everything else has failed. I believe we need our churches. I believe we need our churches to be more involved, to do outreach. The professional PhDs have failed. This is why we still have the problem. The reverends need to go out there. I support that. We see reverends being involved in our jails. We could bring reverends involved in churches into the drug fight. They're the front lines. They could do it. Everything else has failed. I would advocate, as a city council person, allocate monies to this cause. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next candidate.
I'm a child of the 80s. I know quite well what the crack epidemic looked like. I saw it firsthand, but I also saw what the recovery was. It began with community faith-based organizations. It began with people coming together and giving a safe space for families to talk about addiction, to seek help in a way where they didn't fear any criminal repercussions. And earlier this week, I met a lady. Her son, 34 years old, had foot surgery. And unfortunately, he became addicted. And that is now a will of his own, but he couldn't find a place to go and talk about it without feeling a fear of taken to jail. And she didn't know where to turn to because she was desperate looking for help. And then I talked to her about what happened when I was a child of the 80s and what I saw. And it is coming together. And so we worked together on finding a location for her. Unfortunately, it was in Manhattan. And that's the problem, not having the resources here in the Bronx for her. And as a councilwoman, I will empower community faith-based organizations to have their meetings here, to have real conversations on what addiction is, because it is an illness, what it looks like, and how families can come together and address the issue, because it has hit home, it has hit hard, and we need to work together as a community, as a family, and heal together. And that also involves our police officers, making sure that they know where these drug dealers are and holding them accountable. These drug dealers who have no other motivation than to make money off of people's addictions. And it's imprisoning them and putting them to the highest charge of the law. Because if there's a death involved, you should serve for that life that you just took away.
Thank you very much. And our next candidate.
We have more children dying from drug overdoses than gun violence and car accidents combined. This is a true tragedy, an epidemic. It's in everyone's home. It doesn't discriminate against ethnicity, race, religion, financial status. I have two boys, a 16 and an 18-year-old, and my biggest fear at night is to make sure that they're in their beds. These are issues that every family is afraid of. We're concerned for the next generation, for the health and being of our current generation, and there's only one way to do this: early intervention. Department of Health and their programs educate our children earlier. Bring in more police. We need officers on the street. We need the drug module back at the 4-5 precinct. We need to hold those accountable that are destroying the lives and the future of so many young people. And it begins, unfortunately, in many circumstances at our own homes with the prescription drugs that are so readily available that our children are getting access to. Children as young as 12 years old are overdosing. So we pump more money into preventive care for those that are currently taking drugs, education, more policing, and keeping God in our lives, because we need Him more now than ever before to make sure that we get through this epidemic.
Thank you. Next candidate.
I don't often do this, but this is the most important issue of this election. This is something I'm on the doors every day. I've been on the doors multiple times a week since October. And you'd be stunned at the amount of mothers who will come to you, tears in their eyes, and will tell you that they have a child who is suffering from addiction. We all know someone. I have a very dear friend of mine who I grew up with. He's not the same from this. So we all know someone who has been grappling with addiction, or you know someone who has been grappling it for a loved one directly. I was inspired after many of these stories after working at Jacoby Medical Center, and I'm not taking away from the faith-based community at all, but I get to see the good work that our doctors do day in, day out. It's one of the privileges I have of working there. I get to, in a sense, be the storyteller to tell a lot of these stories, and they're doing a great job, but they need help. And I have actually put together a comprehensive plan on my website to deal with the opioid epidemic. Some things that we know that work already, like Stand Up to Violence, or we send credible messengers out into the community. It's reduced gun violence. I want to do the same with recovered people who have suffered with addiction, have them go out and mentor to these people so they don't have to hit rock bottom before they get into treatment. I want to make sure that in every of the top 10 neighborhoods, we're one of them, where we are having accidental drug overdoses, that we also have the Narcan available at a pharmacy within the neighborhoods, and that it reads right on the register of every other pharmacy where that pharmacy is, so no one needs to worry about the shame of asking for it. I want to make sure every bar and nightclub has Narcan where they have their first aid kits and their CPR kits. I want to make sure that the hospitals have readmitting privileges so they can go after your 72-hour detox, not back to an environment where you're not sure if you're going to relapse, but you can go to a public hospital and stay there a little while longer, because in the end that is going to save us money. And finally, I want to make sure that our behavioral health professionals and our chemical dependency professionals are cross-trained, because we're losing too many people within the cracks. Those are the types of things your councilman needs to be worried on. What is the practical policy solution to solve this problem? And one other thing, if we find out where the drug dealers are, we have to go after them. The dealers, not the users, the dealers, hammer and tong. We have to go after the landlords who house them, and we really need to work on this issue more, because we're not doing it right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate.
This is a topic that I deal with on a daily basis. As a program director of a supportive housing program in the South Bronx, I work with individuals who were formerly homeless, who have a mental illness, and who also have substance abuse background. And not too long ago, just this past Sunday, I had one of my clients who went into Lincoln Hospital, and she went in there with a pain in her physical body and reported it to the hospital. The hospital tested her, took her in for a couple of hours and decided that there was no issue, that she was okay, and released her without really giving her a psychiatric evaluation. So what comes first, the egg or the chicken? Drugs is not the only problem. It's also the fact that people are dealing with depression. People are dealing with psychiatric issues that are not being taken care of and not being dealt with. We need to get the hospitals and the policy to be changed so that hospitals can be better trained and could have facilities not only at one hospital, but at several hospitals, at all hospitals, whether they're private or public, to serve the community. We need to also educate the families that are suffering along with these individuals. We need to educate our police force. We need to have them involved. We need to educate our churches so that they can also be involved. And yes, we do need to report the drug dealers, not the drug users. And we should serve a community that is a safe harm reduction facility, or a safe harm reduction community, where we're not punishing the user, but we're helping them wean off these drugs by providing them the correct and accurate services, whether it's psych help, whether it's getting them a way to get a job. Maybe that's what's not helping them get off the drugs, because they're so depressed because they can't pay their bills, or because there's other problems in that home. So we need to provide these services across the community.
Thank you. Next candidate.
All right, I am very proud to be on the front lines with the park situation right now. I'm working with a few moms from Bruckner Playground, which is right behind MS 101, and with Bufano on Waterbury Avenue. You know, we have moms that are very concerned, and they've taken videos, and they've reached out to the police. So working together with the moms, we've sent letters to the elected officials, we've sent letters to the community board, we've sent letters to the Parks Department. We've already met with the Parks Department. They're talking about putting in more things that the kids that are doing the drugs will stay away from, things like the jungle gym, so that the parents can actually bring their kids to the jungle gym. But, you know, we need more. You know, I'm proud that I helped start an organization called Community on Patrol. I didn't start the organization. I did the 501c3, which they needed. I did that courtesy, because we need organizations like that in this community. I mean, today we're being protected by the Bronx Department of Public Safety, in the room, and I want to thank them because they're another organization in our community made up of volunteers, and we shouldn't rely on volunteers. We need the city to give us more police. Because we're one of the safest communities in the area, we get less police, and it's not right that we're being punished for that. So we need to make sure that our elected officials go to bat for us and bring in more police because our children need better protection. We need to definitely educate our children more, not only on the drugs, which I think that our councilmen should find ways to cut the fat in other programs and bring more funding to drug education, but also on depression. Like Alex said, I think that depression is a big thing with peer pressure. Look, I have 3 boys in college and a daughter in high school, and I think that peer pressure is a big thing today. Peer pressure, whether it's on drugs or anything, you know, the kids, they feel like they have no outlet. So what happens? Either they turn to something like drugs, and even as some things as serious as suicide. We need to make sure that the kids are educated, and we need to have the funding in the city schools.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to thank you all for your responses, and we're going to move now into our section for questions from the audience. So we've been collecting them all this evening. We thank you for that. And for those questions that I may have here that we don't have a chance to get to, as I mentioned before, they will be posted online on Facebook. So if you feel your question wasn't addressed, it will be addressed, so no need to worry. Okay, I want to just remind the candidates that you have, again, only 2 minutes to respond to this, and our timekeeper will be watching our time very closely. Okay, so the first question is about police accountability. And so we want to know, can you please say a little bit more about your plans to ensure that our police force is accountable to community members? First candidate.
Well, as far as the police department, they need to go out more to the community and be friendly to the neighborhood and to the kids in the neighborhood. And that's kind of difficult when you have a small staff and a small team running the 45th precinct. It's kind of difficult to go out and have community events and invite the Boys Club, the Boy Scouts and other non-for-profit organizations and be friendly with them. So as far as policing them, we need to give them a little break. We need to give them a little bit more support. We don't have enough police department to run this city, the 13th City Council District. As your city councilman, I want to help provide more police officers into the 45th Police Precinct because that's what's needed. We need to bring more details into the neighborhood, and those details need to walk the beat. I remember growing up as a young man, the local police officers would always be around the neighborhood. They were friendly. Sometimes they would take us out on trips. Sometimes they would take us out to great adventures. It was a different time when I was growing up. And so the middle-class community here needs to wake up and realize that we need to support not only our local police, we need to support them and bring more of them here so that they can be able to do their job and they won't be overwhelmed with their work. But we're understaffed at the 45th Police Department. We got, the community has grown, and we need to support them and bring more police officers to this neighborhood because we, the middle-class people here, pay taxes. Most of you pay taxes. Hardworking parents, 2 people working in the family, 90% of the money goes to the other side of the Bronx, and we get nothing. I'm sick and tired of it, that we don't get our money back. So thank you. This is what I'll do. And we need to bring the money here to support the police department.
Thank you. Next candidate.
At one point, we had 41,000 police officers. I believe we have 34. We're short about 6,000, give or take some. I think that's the problem. It's a matter of budgeting. This mayor, who may I say, and I probably could say since he's not here, otherwise I'll get yelled at by Ms. Torres, is the worst mayor we've had. And absolutely the worst. He's increased our budget close to $10 billion. $10 billion in 4 years, and we don't have enough police officers to protect us, to make your kids safe, to protect our seniors, to be able to walk the streets comfortable. Because of politics. Because of politics, because we have a mayor who will rather take that money and provide services. He wants to provide it to certain programs or certain things that are good for him. For example, just proposed 90 homeless shelters throughout the city. You know what that is? It's a scheme. It's a real estate scheme. It's a payoff to the developers. That's all it is. And that's where the problem comes in. And we need a council person that's not connected to the political. Some of our candidates have run with Mr. de Blasio or on the same ticket. Some of the candidates here are politically connected to the mayor. I am not independent. I don't have a problem going down to City Hall. It's your choice. We need to have more policing. Policing is a requirement. It is a duty to our community to make everyone feel safe and protect us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next candidate.
So can you just repeat the question one more time,
Sure.
just because I want to make sure that we answer the question here.
Sure, no problem. Can you say more about your plans to ensure that our police force is accountable to community members?
So for me, growing up, I knew my beat cop. I knew I can turn to them whenever I had a concern. Growing up today, our kids can't run to our police officers because they unfortunately are not around, especially in this district, in the 49th district, and that is because they're spread so thin. We have right here in the 45th precinct, our officers have to go to City Island, Co-op City, Orchard Beach, and then us. We just don't have enough manpower. So like Egidio did mention, we are short 6,000 officers. And it began actually in the Bloomberg era where the classes were reduced by 500 officers each and every time. So it begins for me as a council person to increase the class sizes, to increase the diversity. So that way when we turn to our officers, we understand and they can relate to us because guess what? They are from our areas. Because that's what our main focus should be also. When we hire our officers, they also live here. We know them. We can turn to them. They know us. They know our background. And they know when you mess up as a kid, I'm going to tell your mom, and that's the biggest fear because everybody knows a mama with a chancleta is always very, very scary in my household. And what we are looking forward to do is increasing all first responders because, you know, as John Serini had mentioned earlier, our park police, we have 250 officers for all our parks. 250. That is scary. We have to increase that as well. And when we're looking at our firefighters, it's increasing our firefighters overall as well. It's a whole shortage of first responders that we need to increase and we have to stick together. It's increasing the budgeting. And also, it's the programming. It's the funds for after-school programs like the Police Athletic League, because that's the best way that you continue police and community relationships. And holding folks accountable, well, we all know how we can do that. We have our community boards. We are very vocal in this district, and we don't back down. And we also have a police precinct council that John is a part of. And that's how you go. You go and you mention, and you go every single month to those meetings.
Thank
okay?
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And on to our next candidate.
Safety is what determines if we're happy or proud of where we live in. We want to feel safe, not only in our homes, but the moment we leave our homes, we go to work and we return, and we hope that our children are safe in the environment, the community that they live in. It's about bringing additional police officers in. I'm fully supportive of the 4-9 precinct where we have the bike patrol, bringing it to the 4-5. It's about making sure that our policemen and women are equipped and trained properly. Community policing, huge supporter. I'm also a big fan and supporter of bringing the police and engaging and interacting with the youth. We recently held events at the 4-9 Precinct School Giveaway. I had an event at Westchester Square, International Family Day. I brought a dunk tank. It was Dunk a Cop. The kids lined up. They got to interact with the policeman, realize that he is one of them. He lives in the community, that he's not the bad guy. We educate and intervene early on, bring our officers into the schools early, explain to the youth the roles that they played and that they're there for their safety, and engage with them in time of need, that they're not the enemy. So it's about resources, training, education, and making sure that they play the role that they're intended, not only to protect us, but interact and engage with all of the members of the community. You shouldn't be afraid of policemen. You should embrace them.
Thank you. On to our next candidate.
I think there's been a lot said here on the stage that I really, really agree with, and we've had a very issue-oriented and substantive conversation here. I understand the questions about accountability, but frankly, yes, it's about accountability, but the system as it's set up right now isn't serving the 45th or 49th precincts. I think everyone here would agree with that. The 45th precinct, Marjorie touched on this a little bit, it's the second largest precinct in the city of New York. And I know, because I used to go down and, crack down on some of the nightlife establishments, that when we went down the SLA and the judge would ask the cops about their compliments, they would say, we have 5 patrol cars on a weekend, or 4 patrol cars rather, on a weekend evening. Cope City, Westchester Square, City Island, Country Club, Throgs Neck, Pelham Bay. That's not enough. We need to start measuring the response times, because if we keep doing it based on CompStat, we're going to lose that argument each and every time to some of the higher crime precincts. What really matters is how quickly that cop can get on your door when you have a problem. That's how we have to start measuring these things. We need people who are going down there doing effective oversight of how long it takes to respond to these calls. I'm on here, and I know many of my friends and colleagues are on here, and you see it on social media. It takes an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. I don't think the cops are falling asleep. I think they're really being overworked, and I think that they have to prioritize where they're going. I want to double down on the investment the council made, and I know Jimmy Vacco was a leader in that fight of hiring 1,000 new police officers. I want to double down on that in this term, and God willing, hopefully we could double down on that in a second term. We need to also, in terms of accountability, civilianize some of the desk jobs. Listen, I love all the cops. I think 99% of them do an outstanding job. But there is no reason why a cop who is trained in firearms and everything else and safety is sitting behind a desk. That's not a good use of that person's time, and we need them out in our communities. We need to be safe. I want to accelerate the neighborhood community officers. I want to incentivize the officers to live in New York City if we give them a bonus to live in some of the communities they patrol, which touched on a little bit what Marjorie said. And finally, I want to soundproof some of these nightlife establishments. They're too noisy, and my neighbors, they shouldn't have to be kept up late night on a Wednesday because someone wants to have a nice party on the water. I'm sorry, it shouldn't be done. And finally, a way that we have helped, and I've worked with Bob Beater and Annie on this, is the 45th Precinct Community Council is now 501c3. It's a tax-deductible donation, and we're going to be doing more in whatever role I serve in to make sure that we're complementing our police officers in the service they want to do to the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and on to our next candidate. Please hold your applause. Thank you.
Thank you for the clapping. I haven't given you an answer yet. But on that note, I do agree that we need to increase our police force in the 4-5 and the 4-9, specifically here in the 4-5. And the 4-5 shouldn't have to be running from City Island all the way to Pelham Bay to Throgs Neck to Westchester Square to Morris Park. And I know I said Morris Park, and that's the 4-9. But the point is, one, we do need to hire more police officers. Two, we need to also retrain the police officers that we do already have. And maybe, like John said, change some of these jobs to civilian jobs so that they're not tied down to a desk. Third, we also need to make sure that our officers are out in the community and that they're engaging our children, our youth, our young adults, and our seniors so that there's a relationship there. Okay, so we need community policing in a way that's effective and that people are actually respecting each other, the police officers as well as the residents of the community. Third, fourth, I would like to have the churches in the community, regardless of religious faith, engage with the police officers in the community. And we should have open forums like this where the precinct actually meets in front of the public and allow the public to engage and ask questions. So those meetings that we have at the precinct once a month, they should happen in a church like this, not in the precinct, because some people are scared to even show up to the police precinct. And I'm also one of those individuals who did not know that there was a meeting every month at the 4-5 or at the 4-9. I only learned that when I decided to run for city council. I think we need to educate the public. We need to educate New Yorkers that there are meetings happening every month that affect their community, that affect them as individuals. So let's educate our children, our young adults, our adults and seniors, and that's how we will make a change here in this community with the policing and also increasing the amount of police officers that we have.
Thank you. And on to our other candidate, our last candidate.
So once again, we have organizations like the Morris Park Patrol, we have the Bronx Department of Public Safety, we have Community on Patrol, and we have our auxiliary police officers. And I'm sure you guys have seen these vehicles out there, and it's great that we're lucky enough and blessed that we do have these organizations, but we shouldn't have to rely on the volunteer organizations that go out and do put themselves at risk every day. You know, they're basically see something, say something type of organization. They don't carry guns. They can't, get involved in disputes. So, we have to be cautious on what's going on. But I think that, when it comes down to it, the 45th, I've asked this over and over again to the commanding officers. They have about 170 police officers there. The 49th has about 220 police officers there. So we have approximately 390 police officers to cover this entire area, which is over 170,000 residents, not including Co-op City. If you include Co-op City, it's infinite. So we need more police in our community. We need to get back to that courtesy that's on the side of the vehicle so that the community residents, especially the children, don't fear our police officers. Because a lot of kids, let's face it, they're scared because they see what's on the media and they think that the police are going to harm them in some way. But we need to get back to that nice camaraderie between the residents and the people. So like we said, let's bring back that B-Cop. Let's make sure that the B-Cop knows our small business owners and knows our homeowners. It would be nice if on a nice hot day somebody brought out a police officer something to drink. And this way the police and the community are back together again. We also we have other programs. Like I know Morris Park has a program called Safe Haven, which I know is great because the kids have some place to go. God forbid they feel like they're threatened, and they run in the store. And this is something that's scary, that a community had to come up with this. I mean, can you imagine a community came up with a safe haven because kids were complaining that people were following them. So we need to make sure we have more police. We need to make sure the city council budgets for more police.
Thank you. Okay, and now we're going to go to our next question coming from the community. Actually, this question is coming from our wonderful Cub Scouts. Great organization. I used to be part of that as well. Thank you so much for coming. That does deserve an applause, right? Okay, so the question is, which is very valid, what is your plan for schools? And I think as a parent, and other parents in here, this is something that's very near and dear to our hearts.
Well, we need to go back to basics. We need to go back to democracy. We need to take our community back. 90% of our taxes are not staying here in the community. Kids, guys, listen. When I was going to school, there was a music program. We had jazz band, we had an orchestra, we had a good football team. And the football teams used to play against the other high schools. We had the greatest high schools, Lehman Heights High School and Columbus High School. We had a jazz band. We had a drama team. Guys, we had everything, and you kids deserve it all. Everything that I had when I was a kid, you deserve it. And I want you to know that. It's coming down from my heart. And what has happened, guys, and I want you to understand that you're the future. I want you guys to network with each other and realize that you're the future and you're going to be in control of this community later on. And I want you to fight the people that don't represent this community 100%. That's my message to you guys. As a young kid, I rode bike with my friends. We talked about not doing drugs, about surviving, going to high school, going to college. And I want you guys to have the same things. And I want you to talk to your parents tonight and ask them who you think is the best person here to represent you. Okay, guys? Because you guys are the future. And I want to bring back, as your city councilman, I want to bring back all those nice things that I had that allowed me to survive the streets of the Bronx. And they're a little different from where you're coming from, because it's kind of nicer, right? This neighborhood is a little bit better compared to the neighborhood when I grew up. But I want you guys to know that I stand with you.
Thank you.
And that I'm going to work for you guys, and you're going to be my first representatives in my administration.
Thank
How
you.
about that?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And on to our next candidate.
Education, crime, the penal code. We must remember something. The city does not make the laws to supersede the state. The state, your assemblyman and your senator, impose laws. We must change the laws in Albany first for it to be effective to the city. That's very important. Having said that, the school system, Albany allocated $22,000 per child this recent budget. Unfortunately, it doesn't get to the schools. Some of our schools are falling apart, not enough staffing, not enough participation. So what do? We blame Albany. We blame the assembly. We blame the senators for not fixing the problem. The unions control the schools. Your children are political pawns, like it or not. What do we do to solve the problem? Parent participation. I like to bring back the school boards. And it's not corrupted and political like it was before. Every school should be governed by parents. The school boards are the key to improve, to save individual schools, to have parents dictate, and to make sure that their children, the money is spent for their children. That is the participation. That's democracy. Without parents' participation, with bureaucrats, with politicians controlling Albany, it's going to fail. It has failed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And on to our next candidate.
Good evening, gentlemen. It's pretty awesome you're staying late out tonight. It's 8:45, and I'm pretty sure that this is all exciting and new to you. See, we're here to represent you, and we're here to give you what you need to succeed in life. See, I had the advantage of going to public school through 8th grade, and part of my curriculum was having music and arts. It was also having the ability to go ahead and accelerate my classes and having a gifted and talented program. And part of that means taking advantage of your skill set and making sure that you have everything in place to succeed in life. And that's our goal, that's our mission. My role as a city council member is to ensure that you will succeed at all odds because you're strong. And today, you're a Boy Scout. Tomorrow, you'll be a leader. And that belongs, and it starts off with education. Not only at home, but it's after school. Having after-school programs that work for you, that keep your interests in mind. If you like coding because you're playing Minecraft, that's a first start. We'll start there. If you don't care about coding and you want to go play baseball and basketball, then we have to have those opportunities for you as well. We can't stand to fail you because you are our future. And when we are failed from the state in Albany and we're not given the money that's promised to us, it affects you. It affects your future. But you know what? I'm tiny and I'm pretty much probably shorter than most of you, which is sad. But you know what? I learned I have a big old mouth and I'm here to protect you, make sure that you have everything to succeed. And so that means getting more funding for after-school programs. That means making sure that you have programs within your school day that makes you succeed because you're bright and because you have a future. And it's on me to make sure that you will succeed.
Thank you very much. And on to our next candidate.
That is an awesome question because we know it begins with education, it ends with education. While in Albany this past budget process, I'm proud to say that we fought to invest in your future. 1 out of every $6 that we allocated went into education. And it's about making sure those doors stay open more hours in a day than they're closed. They're built by taxpayer dollars. They're in our communities, and they're meant for the use of our communities. It goes further. We do a great job to talk about the tale of two cities. We don't talk about the tale of the two students, many of which have to attend class in trailers. They have to put on a jacket to use a restroom or go to the library or even lunch in the snow, in the rain, in the heat, and the cold. There's an injustice. I've done my part in Albany to make sure that education was properly funded. In the city council, I'm going to make sure that that money's spent wisely so you get all the resources that you need. We can't ask you to dream big because all things are possible without investing in you. It begins with education. I'll be there as a partner for you to make sure that you have that.
Thank you.
Guys, it's great to see you all, and I hope you all get a merit badge for this. If not pizza, which I'm sure your moms are going to make happen. I actually ran into some of your moms when I was on the door, and they told me you'd be here tonight. So if you have a question afterwards you want to ask me, I'll stick around. I can answer anything. Even though none of you guys will ever be able to probably vote for one of us on the stage, in the end, we're responsible to each and every one of you because it's about the world we leave behind to you. It's about the world that we leave behind to the next generation. Hopefully you'll have it better than what we had up here. That's what this is all about with education. What I'd like to do, some of this you're going to like, some of this maybe not, but I'm going to bear with me here. One, I think that unfortunately your teachers are being penalized because they're teaching you to the test, and that teaches you short-term retention of information. That's not preparing you guys for the jobs of the future and technology. One of you could create the next, one of you could be the next Steve Jobs and change this world. But we need to teach you and build on your skill set, not just teach you to a test, and I think that's where federal policies unfortunately failed us in that regard. I want to make sure there are vocational schools that are available. You know, John Serini and I have a little bit of an age gap between us. I don't think that surprised anybody, but when John Serini went to Lehman, I'm not insulting you, John. You know I love you. You know I love you. I'm not insulting you. But when John went to school, when he was a little bit older than you, when he went to Lehman, they had a great electrical shop program. By the time I could have went there to that program, it wasn't there anymore. We have to get that back. So if you guys want to pursue that thing in life or that career in life, that it's available to you. I want to make sure that we're confronting the bureaucracy because you know what? We need more teachers in there to keep your class sizes low. We don't need more consultants. That's not going to help anybody, and that's not going to help your parents in what they need to do. And frankly, our mayor's not done a good job of that. And the most important thing I want you guys to know is we need to recognize a problem when we see it and not look away and not confront the problem. And the fact of the matter is Albany is owed money to your generation and your education. If we can't recognize the problem, we can't solve it. I'll go up to Albany, even though I won't be elected there, I'll be elected to the city council, and I'll fight and testify to make sure you get the money that you're deserved. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Next candidate.
So for the last 2.5 years, I've been campaigning, or my platform has been focused on education reform. And I was the first person to say that not only do I want to bring back music and arts into the schools, but I also want to bring back vocational training. We need to prepare our kids for different types of opportunities, not just for college. I'm a product of public school system. I went to elementary school, middle school, high school, and college here in the city in the public school system. Okay, I understand the ins and outs of a public school system. I'm a product of it. I support it, but I also support the opportunity for people to have choices. One, not everyone's going to go to college, so we do need to train our future kids to have an actual skill set that they can get a job once they leave high school. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't encourage children and prepare them correctly. So we do need to revamp the educational system. It starts in Albany, it starts in Washington, and we have to hold our elected officials accountable. Why? Because the laws that are in place are not serving our children. They're serving the businesses that are profiting from all of these tests that you guys are studying so hard to just pass. We need to actually prepare you to learn and to understand, and not just to pass a test, but to actually have a future in some sort of a skilled area in life. I also want to support after-school programming. After-school programming across K through 12th grade. It shouldn't just be for children in kindergarten or in elementary school. We need to engage our kids as even in high school, because that's where the problem is, when we don't have anything for them to do after 3 p.m. So those are very important issues to me. I have 4 children, and they have gone through the public school system, and I understand what it is to struggle every day, to have to find a school that will not only teach my children, but prepare them for the future.
Thank you. And our last candidate?
So, first of all, I want to say I'm not that much older. I think I might be old enough that you guys could actually vote for me in the future. I want to say my brother's a school teacher at Lehman High School, so I hear firsthand. I was also a product of all the local public schools. I went to PS 14, IS 192, Lehman High School, and then went on to Lehman College. So I'm proud of the public school system education that I got. But what I think that we need, because I also have 4 children, 3 sons and a daughter, and I think that, we need to have smaller classroom sizes. I think that our teachers are being overworked. We have to remember that teachers, a lot of people say, oh, they have 2 months off vacation. That's not true, because they work long hours. They have to grade their exams, plan the lesson for the next day. Their hours are much longer than most people. So we need to make sure that the teachers have a smaller classroom size so they can have less exams to grade, put more attention to each child. I'm also an accountant, and I can tell you that teachers can only deduct $250 a year for their supplies. And I don't know any teacher that will admit they spent less than $250 in supplies. We need to make sure that the teachers are getting the resources that they need. I think that each school should have like a supply room in the building and be fully stocked at all times, so a teacher can go down, get a ream of paper, get pencils, get rulers, get whatever they need, because the teachers should have the resources to teach our children. It's very important. I think that teachers in high school should also have a program. Back when I was in high school in Lehman, there was an internship program. Now, talking about programs like vocational school, that's great, but maybe we can go back to the internship programs. And I know that Community Board 10 is working on a program like that, which I'm definitely an advocate for. I've already signed up saying I'll take interns. I'll take people from my accounting practice. If anybody wants to learn at that early age, let me give them a little bit of an education. I think it's a great idea. We should bring that to all the high schools. Thank you, Community Board, for coming up with that idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to thank you so much for responding to our community concerns from the audience members. And we encourage you to interact continually with the candidates on their social media platforms. And we also want to remind you again to see the ushers at the end to fill a pledge to vote card. And we'll follow up with you and send you more information about election and the other events. So now, at this time, we're going to have each candidate will have 1 minute to share their closing statements. Candidates, please use this space to remind our audience members why we should be going out to vote and how your vision aligns with our hopes for building a beloved Bronx through faith over fear. So we will start again with you.
Good evening, everybody. Once again, my name is Victor Ortiz, and I want to bring back democracy back to Throsneck. Bring back democracy back to the middle class. Bring back democracy to the working people. I want to bring back democracy to the kids right here. And you guys, you do have a right to exercise a vote, because you could tell your parent which one of us you like. And they're going to listen to you. And they might vote the way you vote. And mind you, I got Republicans and Democrats in my house. But guys, remember what this is about. This is about our neighborhoods. This is about the tax dollars that we pay that don't come back. This is about the $1.7 billion that DHS has that is feeding and giving the money to the developers. Don't sleep. Wake up. The community is big. We need to hire somebody who's not tied into special interests. You need to hire somebody who's independent, free thinking, and has no ties to any type of business. Vote for Victor Ortiz.
Thank you.
And vote for your future. And kids, make sure you let your parents know which one of us you liked, okay?
Thank you. On to the next candidate. Closing statement.
Thank you. Again, Egidio Cementelli. And important issue here. How many of you have received flashy advertisement in your house? Election mail. A lot? Okay. You didn't get one from me, did you? You know why you didn't get one from me? I don't take money from developers, real estate, special interest, politically connected. And that's the difference. And that is the person you want to send to City Hall. I am not politically connected. A lot of my candidates up on this panel raised a lot of money, big money. I want you to remember Cementelli, the independent candidate. You might not get a literature in the mail, a flashy literature, generic literature. But I'm real, and you're real. Keep the faith. Hold your politicians accountable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On to our next candidate.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight and staying this late out with us. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to give you a little bit about my background, a little bit about my story. It's a story of strength, persistence, perseverance, and against all odds, you continue. It's about having the thick skin to withhold criticism and just keep on moving. You know, my parents came here. They really didn't have anything in their pockets. They couldn't speak the language, but they showed me what that persistence was to succeed. I took that when I recovered from my surgeries and made sure that I gave a voice to all those around me that were suffering with me. And when we're moving forward, it's giving every single person here a voice, whether it's a transit issue, whether it's an affordability issue, when it's a quality of life issue. It still matters because it's your issue. So every time I knock on the door, my number one priority is, what is your issue? What is your concern? What is your idea to make it better? Because we do this together, because we're all stronger together. And it's about putting people first. Thank you so much.
Thank you. On to our next candidate.
Thank you for being here and allowing me to express why this position is so important. I was fortunate to be born in this great country, born and raised in the borough of the Bronx from two immigrant parents who came here with a fifth grade education. Public service has been the greatest experience of my life. This country has treated my family and me very well. We've done extremely well. I'm not here for a job, a salary, or a title. I've had them all. My proudest title was Super Son. After that, they didn't mean much. I went into politics to make a difference and be a voice, because I truly believe that at the end of the time that we have on this planet, there's going to be a simple question that we ask ourselves, and that is, am I leaving this place better than I found it, and what did I do to make it better? I promise you, on September 12th, if you vote for Mark Jonai, you won't regret it. Vote for the name that you can't pronounce, and vote for Jonai, because he cares.
Thank you. Next, hold your applause, please. If you could please hold your applause. I want to keep to time.
This is probably one of the more orderly forums we've had, so don't worry. If they want to applaud, that's fine. Worse things have happened. I want to thank my fellow candidates for being up here, first and foremost. This is the 9th one of these we've done together. We have 2 or 3 more to go, so guys, there is light at the end of the tunnel. But these have been so meaningful because we get to meet with all of you afterwards. And after every one of these, one of you comes up to me, you share something with me, you ask me a thought-provoking question. This is democracy at its finest. This is the way the system should be in its purest sense. It's about service, and it's about serving each and every one of you. I'm a third-generation Bronxite. I was born, raised, residing, working in this borough. This is home for me. It always has been. 10 years of experience serving you, fighting for you in the government sector, in the public hospital sector as a community activist. Thanks to the CFB, the Campaign Finance Board, and amplifying your voices, we have a fighting chance on September 12th. It's not hyperbole to say that the neighborhood itself is on the ballot on September 12th. A wrong decision could leave a very different neighborhood in the years ahead. I truly believe that in my core. And let's never forget that this is all about what we leave behind to those young men over there. That's what this is about. Vote for the person who's going to leave the best world for them, for your children, and for the next generation. Someone who's going to put the neighborhood before greed. Thank you.
Thank you. And hold your applause, please. Next candidate.
Yeah, I'm going to make this really quick. A minute is not enough, but I'm going to give you a quick recap. I'm an immigrant. I came here at the age of 5. I live in the community for the last 10 years. My family has lived here longer. I want to be a voice for everyone, not just a voice for a specific group of people, but a voice for every part of this community. I have no ties to any political party. I have no ties to the Bronx machine. There's a bigger problem that we haven't spoke about here tonight. But if you follow me on Facebook or Twitter or on Instagram or any social media platform, I will give you the whole story. There's stories that the press doesn't even cover, but you need to be informed, and you should choose a candidate that's gonna support you as a community, because this is about you. This is not about us up here. And if you want your community, you care for your community, and you love your community, then do your homework, follow the money, do your research, and then vote. I will be on the November 7th general election as an independent candidate. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Hold your applause, please. Thank you. Next.
I want to thank Pastor Nick, Throgs Neck Community Church, Angela, Lisa, Elizabeth, all the congregation for letting us again use the facility. And, I just want to thank all you guys for coming out, because it's so important that these events take place so that you guys have knowledge that you need to make these educated decisions. I'm going straight through to November 7th, as, again, I'm the only Republican conservative, and I have the Reform Party endorsement as well. So you will not see my name on September 12th, but please make sure that you remember you do have a choice this year. And on November 7th, I hope that I earn your vote. I want to be the one that you guys vote for. I want to be that voice for our community. I'm tired of worrying about what we say and who we think we might hurt, because we want to fight for our community. This is our community. We live here. We were born and raised here. These are things, the issues that we need to fight for. So when something comes up, we will be your voice. Whoever you elect needs to be accountable, and I hope that tonight you've learned enough about me to make that be your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we can clap. Okay, this brings us to the near end. I want to thank you again for your statements, each one of the candidates. We now just have one final question to ask, but we'd like you to simply reply with a yes or no, okay? Just yes or no, no explanation, and then we'll be ending. I'll be inviting Ms. Suggs and Pastor Nick up. So if you are elected, do you commit to meet with our community again within the first 100 days of taking office? Yes or no? Just yes or no?
Absolutely, yes.
Of course, yes.
Okay.
Most definitely yes.
Yes, more than once.
My first week.
Yes, definitely.
100% yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to have Elizabeth Suggs come up and give our thank you and talk to you just for a brief second. Thank you.
Who was going to say no? No one. Right? That's okay. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming out. Thank you, candidates, for coming, and for the audience for being here. It's been an educational night, and so I thank you for that. I also want to just remember to check out your voter guides. Please speak to your neighbors, your friends, your families, your colleagues, whoever, to share this information with them. And we're also, if you are not registered to vote, we have voter registration cards out on the registration table so that you can be a part of the general election. And I wanted to also thank our co-sponsors, which was New York City Votes and Faith in New York, for just teaming with us so that we can hold this forum here at our church. And if you want to learn more about organizing, please connect with Faith in New York. The information is in the guides in the programs that were given to you. And then finally, our services here at our church. Our Sundays at 10 a.m. and 11:30, and then in September 17th, we'll be changing to 9 a.m. and 11. The times keep changing, but it's okay. Show up. And so I just wanted to thank you. Pastor Nick is just going to close us, and then we're done, right? Thank you so much.
Can we all stand to our feet? How many could go like 3 more hours? Nobody's raising their hands. But I will say that we really appreciate the way that all of you handled yourselves today. Probably speaking for most of us, sometimes politics can get a little messy and a little divided, but I sensed in the room that although some of us are definitely favoring a candidate over the other, which is cool, there was a sense of unity and harmony, and I think that we can work together on some of the issues that really matter. So I appreciate the opportunity to have all of you here at our church. So I'm just going to close this in a word of prayer, and I want to especially thank, again, Elizabeth Suggs and her team that did an amazing job. I want to thank you, Annalisa, with your team, Faith in New York, the folks at Votes New York City. We appreciate all that you've done. Thank you to the media that's come out, and to all of you. We appreciate the opportunity to host you tonight. Let's pray. Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for the privilege to be able to be here at this here candidates forum, Lord. I thank you, God, that you have helped us to do things decently and in order. I thank you, God, that there has been peace in this place today, that, Lord, we're going to be able to go away with informed information that can help us to make good decisions coming up here in the primary and also in the general election. Lord, I pray for each one of these candidates, especially I want to pray that you would protect their hearts and minds. One of these individuals is going to lead us as a council person. So we thank you for the one that will be chosen, that you already know in advance. And we pray that you will bless him or her, Lord God, as you prepare them for the next level. And Lord, for all the other candidates as well, Lord God, we just pray a blessing upon them, that they'll continue to do good work in our community and support those that are around them. Lord, we pray for our people in our community that are here gathered today. Lord, we thank you for everyone that's come out. We pray, Jesus, that your hand would be upon them, that you would show them the strength, Lord, the joy, Lord, and the love that they can experience in relationship with you. And we pray, God, that you will show them your greatness. And Lord, as we go our separate ways, help us, Lord God, to be able to connect together a little bit more, to be able to share together a little bit more, and to come together more like this, not only here in this church, but in our community. And we give you the thanks and praise for it all. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you for being here. Thank you.
We are together. And for the last 20 years, we have been building on a vision to share our views, our voices on our channels. We are the Bronx. We are BronxNet.
Well, I got this as a paid internship. Spending my time here, I really enjoyed the people that work here. I enjoy what goes on behind the scenes.
So far, I've learned how to operate a camera, how to host. I learned how to control audio.
My first time hosting was really nerve-wracking, but I really enjoyed it because it was a new experience.
Coming to you from our BronxNet studios, 4 new shows highlighting some of the best of the Bronx has to offer. We sit down with political leaders on In the District and discuss local legislation, events, and issues. See how the community and business come together with The Bronx Now on BronxNet. Nosotros features leaders from our Latino community. Meet those who are moving to make a difference in public service, business, arts, and culture. Looking for new and exciting dining experiences? Then you'll want to savor the Bronx and try new restaurants and eateries that fill the borough with delicious dishes. We have it all, so experience the Bronx in new and fresh ways on BronxNet.
From the north to the south to the west to the east, we are expanding our services and upgrading technology at Lehman College. And now, Bronxites have an innovative media production facility in the East Bronx at Mercy College in the Hutch Metro Center. The windows on the East Bronx studio, a state-of-the-art control room, media labs for production and training, and other media-capable spaces. Training, workforce development, leading-edge technology, and programs that help you share your ideas, your voice, on your channels, locally and globally. Build media and technology skills at BronxNet and build your dreams. From the north to the south to the west to the east, we are expanding our services and upgrading technology at Lehman College. And now, Bronxites have an innovative media production facility in the East Bronx at Mercy College in the Hutch Metro Center. The windows on the East Bronx studio, a state-of-the-art control room, media labs for production and training, and other media-capable spaces. Training, workforce development, leading-edge technology, and programs that help you share your ideas, your voice, on your channels, locally and globally. Build media and technology skills at BronxNet and build your dreams.